Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Paul Bremer was America's man in Iraq. 8 months after the invasion, Bremer finally announced to the world that the man the Americans had wanted to catch above all others, Iraq's president, Saddam Hussein, was now in American hands.
Saddam Hussein was captured Saturday, December 13th at about 8:30 p.m. local in a cellar in the town of Ad-Duar, which is about 15 kilometers south of Tikrit. I want to say a few words to the people of Iraq. This is a great day in Iraq's history. For decades, hundreds of thousands of you suffered at the hands of this cruel man.
One of those Iraqis who'd suffered at his hands was Dr. Muwaffaq al Rubaie. In the 70s, during Saddam's rise to power, Dr. Rubaie had been imprisoned and tortured. The year that Saddam Hussein became president, 1979, Dr. Rubaie left Iraq. Now, almost a quarter of a century later, he'd returned to be given a senior position in the new American-installed administration. That day, 7 years ago today, Muwaffaq al Rubaie was chairing a meeting when an aide whispered the news in his ear.
I was overwhelmed with the happiness and I could not control myself. I couldn't keep the secret. It was shown on my face. And those who were in the meeting saw this, and the meeting spontaneously broke down, and it was absolute chaos, and people were shouting and yelling and saying slogans, and it was a real sigh of relief.
Why relief? What did the news mean to you?
On the 9th of April 2003, from that date when Saddam Hussein regime was overthrown until we captured Saddam Hussein, the ordinary people of Iraq did not believe that the regime has gone, Saddam has gone forever. You know, the conspiracy theory is prevailing in this part of the world. Until we got him and arrested him, then people started to believe that he's gone forever.
It was an ignominious end. Saddam Hussein, the man who'd ruled Iraq with an iron fist for so many years, had been found hiding in a small underground hole at a farmhouse near his hometown of Tikrit.
First appearances were designed to be deceptive. A tiny hut, a scruffy patch of earth littered with household debris. Amongst the rubbish, we crowded for a first glimpse of the shaft the troops call a spider hole.
That rug off.
Hidden from view under a dirty rug and a cunningly carved trapdoor.
Now what you have is a styrofoam block that looks like a rock. And that's the hole.
So after years of being the master of millions of Iraqis, after 8 months on the run from the forces which overthrew him, this is where Saddam Hussein was found. The man used to presidential palaces was hiding in a hole in the ground.
The first pictures showed Iraq's former strongman, dishevelled, his hair and beard grey and unkempt and straggly. One young Iraqi working for the BBC in Baghdad that day was Bashir. He had no love for Saddam Hussein, but he remembers his shock at seeing those pictures.
Actually, I was shocked, with his appearance, looking like he was one of, those cavemen. He used to rule Iraq in iron and blood. And to see that image of the prisoner being, tested by a U.S. military doctor in that way on TV, so it was a really shocking image.
As for Muwaffaq al Rubaie, the day that it was announced that Saddam had been captured, he was asked by the Americans to go with a couple of other senior Iraqi politicians to visit the prisoner, to formally identify the man who had dominated Dr. Rubaie's life and his nightmares for so long.
We were taken to Baghdad airport. We were taken by helicopter there. The main aim of going there is to recognize that this man with a long beard, with a change of personality, that this is Saddam Hussein. And I remember General Sanchez, who was the American commander in Iraq, asked me whether we want to see the person, that individual, through a glass, or to talk to him through a phone, or to go and meet him in person. I said, no, we wanted to go and meet him in person. and sit and talk and ask him questions.
Had you ever met Saddam Hussein before that day, when you were in prison, for example?
No, I did not meet him in prison personally, but since 79, I could not forget him, because of him, I went to prison.
And what happened when you walked into that room and you saw him for the first time in the flesh?
I saw him sitting on the edge of a bed with a long white gown and a jumper, very scruffy hair. He was sitting on the edge of the bed, cross-legged and head down, very, very small room, where they brought us 4 chairs and we introduced ourselves to him first. I took the lead of throwing a barrage of questions to the man. I started asking him, why did you kill Imam Sadr? Why did you invade Iran? Why did you occupy Kuwait? Why did you do Halabja and poison the Kurds? Why did you kill hundreds of thousands in the mass graves against the Shia in the south? Why did you do that? Why did you execute tens of thousands of people? I started attacking him with barrage of questions, and his answer was either to ridicule my question or to be sarcastic in his reply, or to ignore my question, or to try to justify it and explain exactly his public stance, if you like.
They stayed in that cell with Saddam Hussein for almost an hour. Muwaffaq al Rubaie had been the first to enter, and he was also the last to leave.
I did not want to leave. I was I don't know what's the word to explain this in English, but obsessed in staying. I don't want to leave without asking all my questions. But I have to admit, for history, that it went through my mind as a flashing idea. Why don't we finish him off, this guy, and break to the people the good news that he's gone? But then immediately I went back to myself. Oh, okay, what is the difference between me and him? He has to go through a proper trial in front of the eyes of our people, so that this will herald, if you like, a new page in the history of Iraq. And I feel a real sigh of relief after I left the room. I said to him, Saddam Hussein, may God curse you. He started his colorful language, using really foul language, and the B word and the F word and all the French language on earth. He started his very foul language.
Muwaffaq al Rubaie had suffered nightmares for years after being released from prison. That night in 2003, after first meeting Saddam Hussein, he says the nightmares returned. Saddam Hussein went on trial in Baghdad in October 2005. He was sentenced to death a year later and was executed on the 30th of December 2006. Muwaffaq al Rubaie, who was then Iraq's national security advisor, was one of those who witnessed the execution.